I was not thinking cancer at all. Cancer doesn't run in my family, especially not colorectal cancer. I was 34. I was healthy. As I mentioned, I was a runner. So I had just run a half marathon up and down Pikes Peak, which is a 14,000 foot mountain here in town. So I was in like some of the best shape of my life, ate healthy, and didn't ever think that cancer would strike me at such a young age. My name is Jelena. I am a mom to a now 12-year-old daughter. Some of my activities that I like to do, I love to run. I've been running ever since high school. I enjoy sewing, and I've been sewing figure skating costumes for my daughter, who is a skater. Yeah, so I didn't necessarily know anything was super wrong at first when my first symptoms popped up. My first symptom was actually a change in my gas. It smelled different and was more potent than it used to be. And so I thought maybe it was just like something I was eating. So I tried like taking some probiotics, thinking that that would help. But then I started experiencing bleeding when I would go to the bathroom after taking those probiotics. So I stopped, let the bleeding stop, and let the probiotics kind of work their way out of me. Tried them again, got the same result. So I thought that I was just kind of stuck with stinky farts for the rest of my life. So then when I went in for my physical a few months later, I kind of mentioned that experience with the nurse practitioner, and she asked if I was still experiencing the bleeding, and I said no. So she suspected maybe it was just like a change in my diet, although my diet really hadn't changed. So it could have just been changes in my body as I aged. But she did say that if the bleeding started again, to call the office and let them know, and they'd investigate further. So 3 months later, the bleeding did pick up again. And I hadn't been taking the probiotics. So I called the office and they brought me in for tests. They ran blood work to check me for all kinds of food allergies to see if something was just upsetting my digestive system and causing the bleeding. Everything came back negative. So she sent me in for a colonoscopy so they could investigate firsthand what was going on inside. But for that first one, I think because it was happening so quickly, they did tell me like not to eat fruits and vegetables for like the 2 days leading up to the colonoscopy. No fresh fruit or vegetables, like canned stuff that you can digest easily, you can eat, because they want your colon to be nice and clean. So a lot of those fibrous things that we eat, they can kind of linger or leave residue behind that makes it difficult to really see the entire colon wall. And the day before the procedure, the prep they had me do, I drank magnesium citrate. It's like a 16-ounce kind of weird tasting Sprite kind of bubbly beverage. So I drank that. I took some stool softeners, and then I mixed up the Miralax and Gatorade and had like 2 different doses of that to cleanse me out. And then I had the procedure the next morning and went in thinking, actually, it was late in the morning. It was at like 11:30 because my daughter was in preschool at the time. And my husband had to drop me off at the colonoscopy, go pick her up from preschool, and bring her back to pick me up. So when I was waking up from the procedure, he was in the room, but my daughter was not. And so I was like, where's Mael? And they were like, the nurse wanted her out while they come in and talk to you. And that was when like my stomach dropped, and I suspected that there was bad news coming if they didn't want my daughter in there. So she said that they found a mass in my rectum when they were doing the colonoscopy. They took biopsies of it to see what exactly it was. I was not thinking cancer at all. Cancer doesn't run in my family, especially not colorectal cancer. I was 34. I was healthy. As I mentioned, I was a runner. So I had just run a half marathon up and down Pikes Peak, which is a 14,000 foot mountain here in town. So I was in like some of the best shape of my life, ate healthy, and didn't ever think that cancer would strike me at such a young age. So I was going in thinking I maybe had some kind of digestive disorder that was causing this, and like I might have to be gluten free for the rest of my life, or maybe take some kind of medication to keep things from progressing, or to keep the gas under control and the bleeding under control. I did not suspect cancer at all. She said that they put a rush on the biopsy so they would get the results as soon as possible. But she didn't discuss anything further. She said we'd talk more once those results came in, which it only took 2 days. The colonoscopy was on a Monday, and by Wednesday afternoon, we were in her office to get the results. It was heart-wrenching finding out that I could have cancer, that it was bad enough that they couldn't just like scoop it out during the colonoscopy. So I knew it wasn't just like stage 1 or 2. It was probably more advanced, but had no idea how advanced it was. My daughter was finishing preschool. We were in the process of building a house in a nearby neighborhood, but I had no idea if I was going to live to see that house completed. I was like, do we even continue with this or just pull out because I'm not going to be here and we're not going to need this house? And you try your hardest to not let your mind go to the worst case scenario, but it's really difficult when you hear the word cancer and you have no idea how bad it is to not let your mind wander there occasionally. So then it's just planning, okay, well, what happens if it is this or if it is that? But yeah, trying to not let that get too out of control, because you can spiral quickly and think the worst when it may not necessarily be the worst case scenario. So as I mentioned, 2 days later, we were getting the results at the doctor's office. She confirmed when she was walking us back, she seemed cheery and upbeat. So I thought, oh, well, maybe it's not cancer or it's not bad. And then she sat us down and she said it was cancer. So my husband was there with me, and we cried. The doctor held my hand and cried with us. And she said, we don't know, how bad it is. The next week or so is going to be full of diagnostic testing to find out the staging of the cancer so that we can begin treatment. And she referred me to multiple offices to get the CT scan. She referred me to an oncologist, which I'm glad, because I had no idea who I would go and see for this. So her office took care of getting in touch with all of those offices, and they reached out to me to get everything scheduled. So the next couple of days was just a flood of getting phone calls, scheduling appointments, figuring out, preps for this, because some of them, like, you can't eat for a few hours before, or you need to do this, you need to do that. So over the next week, I did a CT scan, I had an MRI, I had a rectal ultrasound so that they could see if lymph nodes were involved, because it was difficult to see in the CT scan whether or not multiple lymph nodes were involved. So they did that ultrasound, the MRI, and then in the CT scan, a lymph node lit up in my chest, and they weren't sure if it was cancer or not. But they said typically if it had spread up into the chest, like there would be kind of like a trail leading from the cancer up to there. But to be sure, they sent me in for a PET scan. So there was another scan that I got to do. And then meeting with the oncologist, we hadn't gotten the PET scan results yet, but we had gotten CT scan and ultrasound results. So they knew it was at least stage 3 when I met with him. So he kind of explained what the standard of care was, what kind of order treatment was going to go in, and what the next steps would be. So I started out with 28 days of radiation and the oral chemotherapy Xeloda. For the radiation, I went in 5 days a week, so Monday through Friday. And on those days, I took the chemotherapy pills. Saturday and Sunday were break days, so I didn't take anything. on those days. So I had 5.5 weeks of that. The 4th of July and my sister's wedding happened right in the middle of treatment. So I had a couple of days off in the middle there. And he cleared me to go fly to my sister's wedding while I was going through treatment. Came back home, finished it up. I rested for 2 months, which is what my surgeon wanted, to give the radiation a chance to do its job as much as possible, because the tumor continues to shrink even after you're done with radiation. And my tumor was located low enough in the rectum that when we started treatment, if it didn't shrink at all during radiation, then I most likely would have had a permanent colostomy when I had surgery. But the tumor shrank, and it shrank in the correct direction. So my surgeon was able to remove the tumor and leave enough rectum so that I just needed a temporary ileostomy while the resected site had a chance to heal. So they took out about 12 inches of where the colon and rectum joined together, and they took out 17 lymph nodes during that surgery. 5 of them were still positive for cancer. So then that meant I would do 8 rounds of the IV chemotherapy FOLFOX. I waited, I think it was about 6 weeks after my surgery. I had the opportunity to heal, get strong again. They put in a port about 2 weeks before I started my first round of chemotherapy. And then every 2 weeks, I would go in for FOLFOX, and finished that at the end of March in 2017. Rested a couple of months. I really wanted to run a race at the end of May with some friends that we had done multiple years. And so my reversal surgery would have landed if he waited like 6 weeks. It would have been like 2 weeks before that race. So I would not have been able to have run it. So I was like, can I wait a little bit? So I waited a week after. So it was really 2 months after my final round of chemo when I had my ileostomy reversed. So the ileostomy is where they take a portion of your small intestine and route it out your abdominal wall. So for mine, it was a loop ileostomy. So like if this was the abdominal wall and my little knuckle here is my small intestine, they just kind of pull a little bit of it out, and then they cut a slit in it and kind of peel it back. So it's still connected. It's not fully severed, and your waste goes out into a bag that you wear over it. And then after that, it's been maintenance, surveillance. I went in at first, like every 3 months for CT scans and checking my CEA and my blood work to make sure all my blood counts were bouncing back. Eventually, it got strung out to every 6 months, every year. And now I am just going in once a year for follow-up blood work and to check in with my oncologist. In the colonoscopy, I did one follow-up one a year after my surgery, went in after 3 years, another 3 years, and after this past one that I went in this past week, everything looked good. There were no polyps, nothing suspicious. So now I get to wait 5 years until my next colonoscopy. So I will be of a normal age of getting a colonoscopy for my 5th one. So my advice would be to try and like keep track of all of those symptoms, like mark in a calendar, some kind of like symptom tracker, like how many times you're using the bathroom and how your stool has changed, or when you're experiencing blood and all of those things. So you've got like hard evidence to take into the doctor's office when you see them. And if they refuse a colonoscopy, tell them that they need to put in your file that you came to them with symptoms and that they refused to give you a colonoscopy. And that may also make them think twice about denying it. And they might be like, well, I don't want to look bad, so okay, we'll let you go in for one. Or if they are still adamant about it, get a second opinion from another doctor. I know that's not always the easiest thing to do, but if these symptoms are ongoing and aren't getting better with diet changes or other recommendations from a doctor, then it needs to be checked out. I think one of the things that really helped me along the way, because I didn't have any family members that had any history of cancer, so I didn't have anyone nearby that I could reach out to. So I looked online on social media, and social media can get a bad rap a lot of times, but it can be great in situations like this to connect with others that are in your situation that may not be in your town or even in your country where you live. So I connected with so many others that had either finished treatment or were kind of going through treatment at the same time as myself, to just have that support group and know I wasn't the only young woman that was going through this. There were other women across the country, in Canada, elsewhere, that were going through that same thing. So we could kind of vent to each other when we were really tired, or ask about, hey, is this bothering your system? Or, oh my gosh, is your ileostomy going crazy too? What can you do to slow this down? To what do you drink when you're going through Folfox and you've got that cold sensitivity and everything has to be hot? Like, I can only drink so much hot tea before I'm tired of it. Like, what else are you drinking? So those are some of the things, like, you don't necessarily bother your oncologist about, but having a friend there to support you through can help bounce ideas off of you and help you feel like you've got a support group that's there for you and that you can reach out to if you're having a bad day.